Good day, and thank you all for tuning in once again today to maximizing your singleness. It's been some exciting times, and I want to first thank everyone for all of your comments and for just giving us your input. It's so great to get input from people about how things are going and how we are able to help people. And it's just been a true blessing. So I want to thank you for tuning in, and I want to thank my co-host Angie for being right on point all the time. We get so many great comments from people about your insight, and it just adds so much to the program. Okay. And I'm just so thankful the Lord has touched your heart, to allow us to have this. Today we've been kind of, I guess, what I would call talking around the fringes, trying to help set people up to say, well, where do I go from here? How do I get myself to that point where I'm ready to re-engage? I'm ready to get back out there and do some things. So today we want to talk to you about being single and getting ready to mingle, which I think is a very good topic.
I agree.
Because, I've talked to two individuals in counseling, believe it or not, over the past 2 days, which really mirror this conversation.
Okay.
And one of the things that they have been talking about is that idea of how do you transition from old style dating, right, to dating while you are maximizing singleness and not getting caught up in those same old traps that we caught up in again. And one of the things, that we want to look at is, well, how do I maneuver, being who I am, right, and staying true to who I am, and recognizing that the world around me may not be where my head is at, and all those challenges and temptations and that kind of thing. So that's a question I think that you have a good grasp on. So I'm going to kind of throw the ball at you to say, well, help those listeners understand how they can make that happen and what are some of the things they can do to not lose sight of who they have become. Okay. Now they have dropped some vices and, and begin to recognize their own purpose.
Well, I will say it can be difficult. I've recognized this here as of late, trying to be in the world, but not of the world, and trying to do things God's way. And that's kind of tough, especially if you haven't been doing so the whole time, and now you're ready to live your life for Christ and you want to get different results. Basically, what I have recognized, well, I should say in my experience here recently, is that first of all, it's important to date another person that is of God, for sure. Because if not, then you're going to have that, how should I say, like a tug of war as far as you trying to do things one way and they're wanting you to do things a different way and not quite understanding why you have to wait when it comes to sex before marriage and things like that. And I know that's first and foremost. And like you said before, just because a person is in church does not mean they're of God. And I've seen a lot of that lately.
So then just to kind of put it in, biblical context, right? So then there's a text in the Bible that says something like this, that be not unequally yoked.
Correct.
And so I guess that's where you're coming from with that.
Definitely.
And that is, if you get unequally yoked, then things won't add up.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
You want them to kind of come together, right? And so then, well, how do you deal with and because the question, right, talks about, well, how do I function in a world that's not comfortable to where I am spiritually? Because that's how the world is, right? I mean,
yes.
Basically, you got a world where society, the societal norms are different, right?
They are.
From where we kind of want to put ourselves in a spiritual way. So I guess one of the things that we have to ask ourselves is, how do you not compromise your own values to accommodate what society thinks or what the other person may be conditioned to think? Because sometimes you can be saved, but you can be conditioned to think a certain way. And so how do you not compromise that just to make the other person happy?
Wow. Sometimes it can be quite difficult, but I will say this: if you have to compromise your morals and standards, then you know that's not the person for you. That's the bottom line. I've I've experienced it. If you're being pressured in that way, which is a lot of what goes on in the world today, once again, people are living together before marriage, or some people say, you know what, I don't want to get married, but we can have a relationship and just do what we do. And sometimes it may sound good, especially when you're used to doing things that way. But what I do know is the Holy Spirit will convict you if you're surrendered to Him. And you may, step outside of that boundary sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I have made a choice to step down for a minute, because sometimes, let's be honest, the heat gets a little unbearable. And, I'm like, Lord, I need you to help me right now. So sometimes I made a choice after probably like a year and 9 months, and I can't say that I felt bad about it. In a sense, I couldn't feel bad about it because I made the decision to do it. But at the same time, you spoke on some things in church on Sunday. You hit some key points that really stood out to me as far as being strong, holding out, and just having faith and knowing that God is not done with us yet. And because sometimes we may feel like, well, why am I still struggling with these things that I'm going through? I thought we think because we're saved and we're okay now. But like you said, salvation doesn't mean perfection.
No.
It just means now we're saved, and we have a start. There's that first touch, like you said. And I was like thankful to know, like, okay, so there is a second touch because I need it. I need it. So.
Well, you said two things, and I want to kind of like stay there just for a little while. Okay. And the reason why I say that again is because there were two individuals that I just recently, had counseling sessions with that kind of brought this out, right? Okay. And one of them was that you can be saved and sanctified, right? And that does not mean that the other person who's saved will still not want to lead you to compromise, what your values. And so then the issue becomes, and I think it's a very valid issue, is that how then do we look at that? In a mature way, the idea of struggling with the flesh, because sometimes good Christian folk, and that's why what you said, I think the ladies need to hear, they need to understand, not that they don't, but I think they need to hear from a woman's perspective and not just from a man's perspective, because oftentimes we think that women don't have that issue.
Oh, we do.
I'm just saying, it's like, well, the men are the ones that are struggling with the flesh, and that the men are the ones that are always pushing and saying, hey, listen, before you get ready. So let's just be adults for a minute, and let's just talk real talk, because sometimes the flesh does win out.
It sure does.
Right? It doesn't mean you want to win out, but sometimes it wins out. So how do we address that issue? From a standpoint of the flesh did win out, but how do we address that issue from a standpoint that, I'm going to stand pat on my decision. And what if that means that I lose somebody in the process? So how do we deal with that kind of conflict?
What I would say to this is, if you lose someone in the process, they weren't meant to be with you in the first place. Because a lot of times we can save ourselves a lot of grief, a lot of drama, if we do hold out. Give it some time, get to know the person, talk to them a bit. Like you said, find out if you're equally yoked. If you are, then the pressure won't be as great because you can each hold one another accountable, because you should both be walking in the same direction.
Right.
If you're not, then you already know. If you're not equally yoked, this isn't going to work. It's not going to work. And you have to be honest with yourself. Don't make excuses. For this person, pay attention to what this person is showing you, as far as this gives you the time, really, that time to pay attention to who they are, the things that they are saying and the things that they're not saying to you, as far as, is this person, am I compatible with them? Is this someone that I would want to spend the rest of my life with? Or if I did decide to step aside for a minute, so to speak. Is this going to work?
Right, and that's a good point. And let me just so we can stay here just for a minute.
Okay, sure.
Again, because you keep saying things that just kind of like hit me a little bit. And I want our listening and watching audience to really pay attention to what you just said.
Okay.
And that one thing is that you have to believe what a person says.
Most definitely.
You know, I'm paraphrasing, but you have to believe what a person says. And you said, don't make excuses for them.
Exactly.
And I think that's key because what you have then is you have two people who are both single, they're saved, and we're just assuming they're both saved, right? Because if one ain't saved and one is saved, you already headed for trouble.
That's already done,
right?
Yeah.
So let's say they're both saved. And what I heard you to say is that ideally, if we're both saved, if we all have both have identified our purpose, then we both will be reaching for the higher calling.
Exactly.
Right? Now, again, not saying, stumbling cannot take place, but it's not because that's where our head is at, that we're reaching for the higher calling. And if we are really working with one another, that when one is weak, the other will be strong.
That's right.
And when one is strong, the other will be weak, which minimizes that chance of something happening. And I think, and I, again, having been single since 1981, because I got married in 1982.
Okay.
But my memory is still fresh.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'll say this too, to ladies and gents, if you can do that, once you can do that with one another, that's when we really truly have the best interest of the other person at heart. So that's why I want to come back to that and stay there for a while. Because if I can protect you, then you know something about me.
That's right.
Then you know that, this is the kind of guy that I know will, if he'll look out for me this way now, he's going to always look out for me.
Most definitely.
Because that says so much about the guy. That's that intimate part when, that's when you've got to be, this is my opinion now, that's when you've gotten beyond sex and you've gotten to intimacy.
That's right.
Right? Because now you're seeing that person is, wait a minute, he's just not about my body.
Exactly.
He's about me as a total person. He doesn't want me to fall, and then and vice versa. She doesn't want me to fall. Again, I'm not saying people aren't human, but I'm saying that will tell you something about the person. And see, to me, again, just piggybacking on what you said, when you get there, that's when you kind of know it's right. Not right to fall, but right to move forward.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you about that also, because you've been there. Like you said, you got married years ago.
Yeah, I got since 1982. I got plenty of years of experience. But see, then that's when you can say to yourself, you know what? Maybe now we do realize we are compatible enough to get married. Because you have shown me that you care about me. And I think that's so important because
it is.
Oftentimes people get married because they care about themselves. Right?
That's so true.
When I hear people say and I'm gonna kind of rush through this because I don't want to miss everything.
It's okay. Please take your time.
But people will say things like this, I love the way they make me feel. And that's why I just love them. Well, if you love the way they make you feel, then you just said you love you. Yes. Right? But if you can say, I love making them feel. Wow. Right? Then you know that you love them. And that's when a person, in my opinion, or not just my opinion, it's what the Bible says in Ephesians 5, right? That's when you know a person loves you. When they love the way they make you feel and not the way you make them feel. And that's why what you said about that struggling thing with the flesh to me is so important because if you're struggling, I want to be strong for you. Yes, most definitely. And then I want you to be strong for me. And that way we both know we have our best interests at heart, right? So
that was great. That's a great point.
Yeah, right.
Most definitely.
And that's what I'm saying. So when you look at that, when you look at it in that context, right? And then you kind of say, well, when you compare that to the things that broke you in the first place, right? When you look at what broke you in the first place, and for most of us, that's kind of the things that kind of lead us to that brokenness, right? When you look back and you think, this person took advantage of me. This person wasn't thinking about me or thinking about themselves, right? And so when we get there, then, to me, this is a big one. To me now, again. One can know that this is what caused me to get broken, but still struggle.
Oh, we do. We do. I can say that for myself. And that's because, once again, I'm still dealing with that struggle. And like you said in church on Sunday, God is not finished with us yet. So we have to allow ourselves that grace to grow as well. Not to say to go out here and make the same messed up decision time and time again, but progress forward. And like I've said before, you may trip a little bit, but maybe you won't fall all the way down. It might take you a minute because of the brokenness that you're still dealing with. Whereas before, maybe I would have made excuses and tried to put that thing together. Well, it can work for this reason, trying to piece something together. Versus now, maybe I might take a week or so and analyze a situation. And even though it's not really right, but you're still trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. But then you recognize also this is not what it is. So it was nice for a moment just knowing, maybe a bit intriguing, or you were curious about the situation, but then this isn't going to work. So you step away from it. You have to, once again, really be honest with yourself. And pay attention to the other person and what they are showing, like we said before, and not showing you. Listen to some of the things they're saying, because a person, if you just sit and listen to them talk, they'll tell you a whole lot about who they are. That's
right. And you know what, you're so right. And again, you hit such profound points in the way and I love the way you don't have a problem projecting your personal stuff in there, because some people get so, I guess, caught up in that standoffish, not wanting to be real thing. So I appreciate that. And let me just say to the folk, that last comment you made, I think is so real and so revealing that people really need to take that part to heart. Because just because you have somewhat overcome brokenness, and I think that's a good thing to look at too, is that, do we really get truly unbroken? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, and I don't have the answer, but I'm just saying I think that's a legitimate question. If I have been broken, am I really truly fixed?
I don't think so.
That's the thing, right? And how do I know I'm really fixed? Because sometimes I'll fall back into that trap, right? And then realize I thought I was fixed.
Exactly.
But I really wasn't fixed. And like you said, I want people also to do what you just said. Don't beat up on yourself. If you do, because of not being totally fixed, slip and fall.
Exactly.
The issue is not, forgive me my mental slip, because I'm having a mental break. So let's not try to quote it, but say this. It's not how many times a man falls, the Bible teaches us, but his failure to get up.
That's right. That's right.
That he may fall so many times, but God will still let you get back up just as many times, right?
He will.
And that's not a license to do anything. But what I'm saying is that if because of my broken state or my presumed fixed state, I mess around and make the same mistake, because if I'm aware of who I am and I'm honest with myself, right, I won't make excuses. That's what I loved about what you said. I won't make excuses, but I will realize, this was got me in trouble last time.
Exactly.
This is why I failed pray last time. And even though for that moment in time, everything felt great, I got to remember that's what got me in trouble last time, was it felt great for that moment.
Yes.
And I don't want to keep going down that same slide, because I might get so far down I can't pull myself back out again.
That's it.
And so that gives me that I guess that amber light to say, hey, wait a minute, pause. Yeah. And then the red light can come on that says, hey, stop.
Exactly.
And then let me go back and reassess and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to blame myself, because now when you start blaming, then you get back to that feeling broken state again, right?
You really do.
So what I want to do is just acknowledge, Lord, I'm sorry, forgive me. And then now I know what bridges not to cross the next time.
Exactly.
Right?
You won't get so close to the edge next time.
Right. I know that. You know what? The next time when I see the gate coming down on the bridge, do not try to speed up and go past, but just stop and back up and say, hey, wait a minute. The gate was coming down for a reason. Is that, you know what? that was a little bit too tempting,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna equate it to something that's totally different, but I think it has the same meaning. In let's see, 40 years ago, I decided to stop smoking. I was a pack and a half a day smoker, and it was one of the most difficult things that I've ever done so far in my life. Well, I shouldn't say so far, but difficult thing. I realized one simple thing.
What's that?
If I take one more cigarette, I will never quit again.
Wow.
I know that. If I do it, so I knew that about me. Now, I'd had stops and starts before because I never would accept that as a fact. I think that's what most people don't do, is that they don't know themselves, and they're not honest with themselves to say, you got to know where the gate is that's going to fall down,
most
right?
Definitely.
And knowing where that gate is, you can't fool yourself and say, well, yes, I can get to that point. You know you can't, so you don't go.
That's right.
You stop short.
That's right.
Because if you get to that point, I know if I light it up and put it to my lips, and I'm just saying, don't puff. I'm going to puff.
Yeah.
And once I inhale, I'm going to 7 give me back a cruise.
I know, right?
The end of it. So I'm using a different analogy.
That's a great analogy.
Because it's a PG show, right?
But that's a great analogy.
Real talk.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I tell you, and let me say this before we go, we have a guest that says they are ready to come on.
Really?
And talk with real talk. And be a part of it. And so we're gonna work that out so we can bring some folk in, because when we get to talking, I got to tell you, I can't believe the time just seems to go by.
It does.
I don't know if it goes by as fast for you guys as it does for us, but it just right when it gets right to that point where I'm saying, you know what, this is getting here.
I know,
it's
right?
getting good now.
Yeah.
Our time is up. But I'm not going to do the last words, because I have found from our audience, they like you to have the last word.
Oh, really?
So I'm going to listen to what the audience says, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Angie, to just say the last few words about, being single, ready to mingle, and what pitfalls and what things that we need to be looking out for, and how do we address them if we do fall short.
All right. Thank you. Well, what I will say also is date for data. I've heard that so many times. Date for data, not for sex. And pay attention. I cannot say this enough, because I have to tell myself this over and over again. Pay attention to what a person is showing you. Do not ignore the red flags. Don't make excuses for them. And if you have some topics that you want to talk about, I will put my email address in the description box. It is that little, it looks like a V, maybe upside down V next to the title. So click on it. It'll be there. And just in case you don't want to comment down below what you want to talk about, you don't want people to know who you are, you want to remain discreet. So I'll have my email address there for you. And guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video. And we thank you.
God bless you. God have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.